chapter. Okay. Let's go here.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready, everybody? Let's all take a deep breath. Are we ready? Whoever comes in, okay? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. This topic that we're going to get into tonight, very apropos for some people and for everybody, okay? Because really, it really captivated in a very deep place my father-in-law's attention. And it's the topic of the Nefesh of the Ger, the Nefesh of the convert. And he wrote about it, and I remember studying him, and I still don't have it. So you got to be with me in this class. I've got an extra copy. If anybody doesn't have, you could share. And so we're going to go back a little bit to the end of chapter 1, because he did a special note there. Before we continue, we got to understand this. As we know, in many generations, and my personal, I'm going to tell you what page it's on in a second, which no page it's on, okay? Because it's the no page. Actually, it should be right after page 20, okay? On chapter 1, and there's a special section on the Nefesh of the stranger or the Nefesh of the convert. Go ahead, help yourself. Okay. I'll have a double decaf half latte, venti with a twist of lemon. Okay. And so before, I'm just going to go into this. So it's on page 20, where it says chapter 1, section 11, special section. But first, I have to just give you something a little bit before that, okay? Because there's a lot of little pieces that I don't know if I am, with your help, God willing, will put it together, okay? Because it's strange. One is because I've been, also out of Israel. Even when I was in Israel, in my yeshiva, there was programs for people who were coming to convert to Judaism. And they'd have to go through some rigorous training, okay, in Israel, okay? And then abroad, when I came out here into exile, right, outside into America, so I see that, there's a big influx. Maybe there's more influxes than before. Maybe it's always been less kind of influx. But I noticed that there's a huge influx of people who want to come to convert. Now, in the days of Mashiach, when the Messiah comes, the doors will be closed. As it was in King Solomon's day, they closed the doors to converts. Did you know that? They closed the doors. No more conversions. Now, that's not saying that there were closet conversions. Okay, there was all those dark alleyways in the middle of the night where there would be a Beis Din would gather, which would do it secretly. Because I think they ended up with, I remember hearing a tape from Beryl Wine, even during Solomon's reign, there were some 30,000 people who converted during that time. Underground, right? They didn't build a wall. They didn't have a wall, okay? And throughout there, whatever they were, they still people who did. The reason why that they closed conversions in the Messiah's day and in King Solomon's day was because it was very revealed what a Jew is. It was so revealed what a Jew is, right? The nobility of a Jew, that of course everybody wanted to be Jewish. If you think that it's like, if the world sees it's the coolest thing, right? To go paleo or gluten-free, right? So to go Jewish, yeah? Okay. Also, your H-E-Bs and your Walmarts would have whole shelves of Sidurim, prayer books, and kippas and tzitzis and everything like that, and found in every single store. Okay? But of course, in terms of converting, you want somebody who's sincere, and you can't somebody who's just doing it for another fad. Hula hoops and being Jewish go together, right? People put earrings all over and tattoos their body, and then the next week they regret it. Okay? So being Jewish, of course, is a very serious matter, as we're delving into. Okay? Because as we're going to see what happens, and the responsibility, okay, of somebody who's Jewish is a huge responsibility, and that's why the Beis Din in these days, we take it very, very seriously, and in Israel it's very, very serious. As a matter of fact, from what I heard from somebody, it's so serious that they really don't want to do any conversions in Israel anymore, and they say go home and do it there, and then come back to us, right?
They don't recognize it.
Yes, they're very, 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 very strict because of what's going on in the world, right? Because the bottom line is, I'll tell you what the Talmud says straight out in front, right? I don't pull punches in my classes. I don't get politically correct, okay? I don't have to, and I can't afford it, okay? Like, I'm not going to walk on eggshells and be nice, okay? You're going to interrupt my thought just for a second. I just wanted to say, hold on to that thought, the question. The Talmud says that kashe geirim ki Yisrael kasapachas. Difficult are converts to the Jewish people as a scab. In other words, converts to the Jewish people are considered like a scab. A scab. So what does that mean? What does that mean? So there are different interpretations of that. Have any of you heard such a statement before?
Is that like somebody that goes across the picket line or something, scab?
I don't know if you know that, but that's interesting. That's maybe a new word for that, for scab.
No, he means like what's over, like this.
Over a wound.
Yeah, I'm talking about a scab on the skin. So a scab on the skin, classically, is something that obviously it sticks out. So it can stick out in two ways. The way that there are two interpretations. Besides, there's two more that Rabbi Yaakov helped me out with this Shabbos. But the classic interpretations of a scab is, one, once they convert, they don't really take the mitzvahs seriously, and basically they flake off and they make their own decision and go about their own life. In other words, they go down. Okay? In other words, they're not exact on the mitzvot. So therefore, here they are, somebody who we accepted as a club member, and you got to follow the rules, and they don't follow the rules. Okay? And then the second one is they follow the rules even better than the regular Jews. Therefore, they shine better, and they make us look bad because they line their refrigerators on Passover with tin foil and make it look like an alien ship. Yeah, of the B movies. B-movie alien ship. Okay? I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm like, open up, getting some milk from somebody's house. I'm like, what is this? Right? Wee, transmission, B-movie. Okay, so in any case, and then I start to feel inadequate. Well, I didn't line my fridge with tin. Okay, so just to give you that little introduction, which is why in the end of days that the doors will be closed, because we want only sincere people. Okay? Okay, somebody had a question. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say something. When I was at the
It's got to be a question. It's got to be a quick question, okay?
When I was at the diaspora yeshiva there with Rabbi Yitzhak Goldstein, and the word that was around there was Neila Shiarim. Was that the door was closed.
Okay, there you go. See, right? I heard it. Mea Sharim is the classic place where all of the ultra-Orthodox hang out, and therefore, in my days, it was not closed, but now apparently it seems like it is, and not every Beis Din is acceptable. Yes?
Are you referencing male or female when you're talking about conversion?
Both. Doesn't matter.
Like over here when it talks about women, it seems like it's different criteria.
Where?
Like in captives, for instance.
Captives is a completely different case. Okay, a captive woman is completely different. Very much like a slave. It's very different. Okay? Those are almost like forced conversions, which they do work. They have an effect, weirdly enough. But those are really exemptions to the general rule. The general rule is a person has to be sincere. And they have to know the mitzvahs, they have to understand the mitzvahs and understand what they're doing, and before they go down into that mikveh, they're going to accept upon themselves whatever the Orthodox rabbis tell them. Yes?
What about a person who's non-Jewish who just doesn't follow anything in Judaism? They get into the world to come.
But they're non-Jewish.
But no, they were born Jewish.
They were born Jewish.
But they went to college.
Got it, and that was it, and blew it all off.
Yeah.
Okay, we call those
Jews.
we call assimilated Jews.
Okay,
they're assimilated. So we're patient. God is very patient.
The world to come.
We don't put a period where God puts a comma.
Oh, okay.
It's just a phase, and God has many ways to bring everybody back, and we pray all the time that everybody comes back to common sense, okay? It's common sense to believe in God, okay? As far as Judaism goes, it's something that a person should rationally come up with in their mind, and all of the ideas of heresy is only because they're taking bribery of the world, meaning they're completely caught by their desires, right? The earthly desires and lusts of the world, so therefore it goes and spins up in their head a rationalization that there is no God and whatever have you. We don't put a period where God puts a comma, and we're patient. Yes?
One other question about the women conversion.
Yeah.
So I thought I read that they need to do 3 things. Like they need to make sure they keep challah, lying.
All Jewish women must do this.
Right, but I'm talking about those 3 specific things.
No, much more than that. Much more. It can't be just, I'm just going to do these 3 things and I'm good to go. Okay? Nida is not an easy thing.
Right. And
Okay?
that was the third one.
What? That's the third one.
Yeah.
The candles, challah, and yeah, but those are just,
That was in the top.
all women are judged for those 3 things. Okay? So, those are the main 3 that women have to be actively responsible for. Lighting candles, separating the dough, if they make dough, right? Right? Get my wife to make dough. Ha! Okay? Ha! She did have to once, and she's like, this is so not me. Okay? So in any case, I don't know how anybody, anyways, she's done her. But, all women have to do this. All women are responsible for whatever it is. Okay? The one thing that women don't have to do, obviously, is Brit Milah, circumcision. Okay? So let's not go there. Okay?
Rabbi, if I bake the challah, is she in trouble?
You can make the dough with love and joy and put all that loving energy and prayers to the world. When it comes time to separate, you call her to do it. She says a blessing and separates that dough, because that is the rectification of all man in the microcosmic level. You understand? When she separates, because Adam is called the dough of the world, earth, and God pinched and made man. And she took that little pinch and basically turned it into what we are now. So now, right? Hello, Earthman, okay? So, messed up, okay? Right? Well, women admit to that. So now, part of her rectification is to pinch the challah itself, which is that rectification of mankind and mankind's mind, everything, right? Simple little action, global significance and global ramifications. That's why you can do it, but let her pinch. Okay? So now in terms of getting into the Nefesh of the Ger and understanding the soul of the convert, I have to give a little introduction. My father-in-law, Zechuso Yegain Aleinu, he did do a huge book here. This is just the first half, okay, called The Old Man in the Sea. Isn't that Ernest Hemingway also?
Yeah.
Don't know how he got away with that. Okay, but really this is called The Old Man in the Sea, or really the Saba de Mishpatim in Hebrew. And it really is because the Parsha of last week was Mishpatim, right? Yes, I got it. Mishpatim, which deals with all of the statutes, if anybody has read through it at all, deals with all of the rules of society and how to govern a society. If one neighbor damages another, one's dog damages the other, ox gores the other person's ox, one person digs a hole in public or leaves some damaging artifact that somebody a banana peel in public, right? All of these kind of laws of damages is in this week's Parsha, okay? And yet here, if you want to go to where in the esoteric writings, where in the writings does it ever speak about reincarnation? This week's Parsha. That's right. This week's Parsha, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, says, Eile HaMishpatim, these are the Mishpatim of reincarnation. These are the laws of the Neshama. In this week's Parsha, embedded in the deepest esoteric understanding, are all the laws of reincarnation in this week's Parsha. A very strange, juxtaposition. You're putting the society laws with reincarnation. How do they go together? It's a very strange kind of thing. What is going on here? Why? Why in the laws of society that we got from Mount Sinai are the laws of the Mishpatim? Baruch Hashem, we have the Baal Shem Tov, the Holy Master. founder of the Hasidic movement, right? So he explains it quite very easily. Baruch Hashem for all of the rabbis, okay?
You're talking about last week's watch.
Last week's Parsha, sorry, yeah. But since I didn't do last week, so I'm kind of doing it now. Okay, because you have to get this concept. You have to understand this concept, okay? Right? So, how does all of the laws of damages, the laws of money, right? So he says, here's the inyan. Be'inyan hadin shechad dayan et chavero. There's a judgment somebody has against his friend. He goes to Beis Din. We have to go always to a Jewish court. That's the first rule. You have to go to a Jewish court. And a person knows when he's going to take this person to a Jewish court, he knows I'm going to win, for sure. This guy owes me money. I've got money coming to me from this guy. Right? He goes for sure. He's got all his claims lined up and everything. He knows definitely that he will merit in din. And what happens after he goes in front of the judges? The judges basically say, no, you have to give him more money. And he's like dumbfounded and he's shocked. He's sure that he would get the money, right? And now the judges say, no, according to the Torah, you have to give him, right? This should not be hard for him. Why? Because the Torah is true. And all of the guidelines that we got from Mount Sinai, including all of the society laws, the mishpatim, we call it, these statutes, are true. And all of the ways of the Torah are pleasantness. Okay? Why? Because this is the truth of the Torah and the pleasantness of its way. Because for sure he can say, ordinarily, that he was obligated really to pay his friend in a previous lifetime. He had to give according to the din. The judgment was really with him according to a previous lifetime. And now both of them are reincarnated, standing in front of judges, where obviously the judges go ahead and say that you have to pay him that money because really, because of a previous lifetime, he had to get that money. Okay? So that's why the Torah obligates him to pay according to his so his friend takes the money, even though that the person in his mind seems like this person got it b'mirma, he got it in a subtle way, he got it with trickery. This other guy, he lied to the court, right? Or whatever it is going on your perception, the money has to go, and therefore you have to walk away from the court that it's justice no matter what. So in other words, any time that a person is schlepped, can I use the word schlepped? Do we know the word schlepped? Yes. If a person is schlepped to a Jewish court and then made to pay money, so therefore a person should not feel aggrieved. Because why? God is fixing the souls through the courts. That's why mishpatim, all of the laws of the courts and monetary discrepancies between Jews, is the parsha of reincarnation. Okay? Also, but though the real value, of course, is in this very parsha. It talks about things what you would look at from an objective point of view, and you can't even put your head around some of these things. When a man will sell his daughter to the maidservant, as that's what it said, brings down, like a man. Okay, in those days you can maybe understand that the poverty level of those days was extreme. And a person has a lot of daughters, and he cannot support and definitely not marry off these daughters. And he sees in the town there's a rich man who's well-to-do, and he has sons. So he's willing, before she's 12, to go ahead and make a deal and have his daughter go and work, and she hardly has to do really any hard work. It's not extreme labor. As a matter of fact, a person who acquires a Jewish slave really acquires a master according to the laws of the Talmud, because you have to give, if there's one pillow, he gets it. If there's one steak, he gets it. He has to get equal, if not better, treatment, believe it or not. Okay? The Torah is so fabulous. There's no such thing as prisons, in the Torah. Did you know that? It's rehab. It's rehab. The first law of last week's parsha is if a person stole, a Jewish man stole because he was so destitute, he stole, he gets sold as a slave. Now that slave is in a house where hopefully it's a functional family. These days you can probably not. But in any case, in those days it was a functional family, a Torah-dika house, a house which was governed by the laws of the Torah. And he has his own room, his own bed, he has good, and therefore the environment of the surroundings of him being in that house, and they can't make him do extra hard labor, that's going to be backbreaking. He do the dishes and things like that, and feed the goats or whatever it is. And basically, through him being there, the osmosis, he'll learn how to basically think different thoughts, and therefore have a different life.
But a murderer doesn't get.
Murderers is different. I'm talking about somebody who steals, right? And by the murderer also, there's no jail. It's either you kill him or you let him go, okay? And let God deal with it. Thank God for God. God runs the show ultimately, okay? So the idea here is when it says that a man sells his daughter as a slave, right? It's not talking about the literal, in the esoteric meaning, it's mean the man is God. He sells his daughter, the neshama, the soul, to a maidservant, meaning to the body. Meaning man takes the soul and sends it down here on a mission, and it's encased in a body with all of its influences that lead it astray. Okay? I had it all. Oh, God darn. Okay, I got to keep my finger on it. Yeah, go.
In the context of Mishpatim, I thought the Jewish people were very wealthy at this point in time.
Not necessarily. Some are yes, and some no. There's always poor.
Leave with the riches of the Egyptians.
This is not talking about that. Mishpatim is talking when you're in the land of Israel and everybody's going about their business and you have rich and poor.
Right.
Okay, it's not immediately after Egypt. Okay?
But chronologically, it's before the Golden Calf, right?
No, it's an argument. It's an argument. Okay? It's an argument. Seriously. So Rashi and the Ramban.
I thought at this point in time the Jewish people were well off.
They were in the desert. They were very well off in the desert. But this is talking about when you go into the land and how you set up courts and things like that and all kinds of things. Because it was a completely different lifestyle in the desert. Okay? All right, now I'm going forward a little bit. Okay, so that explains Mishpatim. But I have to go into here because that's why in this week's Parsha, if you ever want to know in the esoteric writings, where is the source material for reincarnation comes from this chunk, this huge book here that my father-in-law translated and wrote notes on it, goes through the entire huge chunk in this week's Parsha, having to do with the week's Parsha, which has all to do with reincarnation. So in the beginning part, he speaks about the 4 oppressed souls, which I've probably gone over with you before, that there are oppressed souls. Actually, I would have a nickname for this planet, call it Planet Oppression, because basically most of the people are oppressed souls, and I'll explain why. And we've gone over some of this a little bit. There's 4 types. Type number 1 of oppressed soul is where the parents, or specifically the father, was not thinking the highest of thoughts when he was having relations with his wife in terms of the conception of the child. If he wasn't having the greatest of thoughts, right, of bringing down a holy soul from the upper Gan Eden, which most people have not been fully educated, right, most of the world. Therefore, that soul that comes down through that act of intimacy between husband and wife, and the father and mother were not having the best of thoughts, makes a coarse garment that soul dresses in when he comes into this world. That coarse garment has its own kind of like evil inclination and propensity to do bad things. It's an influence, that soul garment. Therefore, this person is locked into certain habits, evil inclinations, lusts, that can detract a person from that soul from fulfilling its destiny. Okay? All meant to be. In the bottom line, it is all meant to be. Okay? That's number 1, oppression. Number 2, oppression is if the world, in terms of the general outlook of the world, if there's more bad deeds done, we have something called the balance scale. You know, like Rosh Hashanah, you have the balance scale, and we always want to tip it to good and tip it to merit and do good deeds. We try to do good deeds. And hopefully if a person has more good deeds than he has bad deeds, it's a positive judgment. That's simplistically looking at it. But what happens if you look at the global world and the way that the world is in general, okay? So then the balance scale, if the balance scale is like everybody be doing bad, right? Everybody be doing wrong. Yeah. Like there's more violence, murder, thievery, greed, and bad stuff going on in a global sense of the world. So we say that the balance scales of the world are tipped to the negative. So any souls that get pulled into the world through that balance scale become an oppressed soul because they're born in a dark time. Just picture like in Terminator, when after the war and everything's just destroyed and apocalyptic, right? Like that, okay? Just to give you a little extreme imagery, okay? But that's, so therefore, basically, if a person is born at that period of time where the balance scales are tipped for negative, that's also called an oppressed soul. Number 3 oppressed soul is when the soul descends into a ger, into a proselyte, into a convert, okay? So it says, it brings it down from a verse, actually. If the daughter of a priest shall be to a strange man. Strange man is a zar, meaning classically, we look at the verse that's in Leviticus, that if a man, like me, I'm a Cohen, and I have a daughter, and let's say if I was in Israel during temple times, so I get special food. I get what's called truma, and it's holy food, because everybody else has to give basically a tenth of their food, consecrated food. It's called the tithe, to the priest. The priest gets, deliveries of consecrated food that no one else can eat. Only the priest can eat. Now, if the priest has a daughter, so that while she's in the house, she could eat. But if she goes and marries somebody who's not a priest, she can't eat that food anymore. Okay? She can't eat the consecrated food because she's married to another man, another family. She's an Unterslag. She's not a Cohen anymore. Okay? So she can't eat the consecrated food. So, but that's the simple meaning. She cannot eat the consecrated food, right? But here he gives a whole different version, because the esoteric meaning, if the daughter of a priest, which means the holy soul of Abraham is called the priest, if the holy soul shall come into a strange man, meaning not a Jewish body. So here we have a soul that gets sent down into this world, and they're sent down into a non-Jewish body. They're born into a non-Jewish body, but internally there's something that drives them, and something that tickles them, and something that moves them, and eventually something clicks, and they have to go ahead and somehow they get introduced into the Jewish way, and they have to become Jewish, and they get this inner calling, okay? But in the meantime, they're born in the cow fields of Montana, or Idaho, or worse, L.A., okay? Right? Hollywood. Oh, Shem help us. Or even worse, Manhattan. Okay? The worst of the worst. Everybody go, oh. Okay. So in any case, it is humiliation for the holy soul to be for a strange man. She is drawn down to a proselyte, meaning this soul is drawn down to a proselyte who converts. She flies down to him from paradise in a hidden way. It has to be hidden, and we're going to see right now, into a structure that is built from a defiled foreskin, a defiled orla. Because the bodies of non-Jews are coming from, we learned this in the Tanya, the first chapter, that the bodies of Gentiles are in the 3 klipot. We saw the 3 husks. Remember, there's 4 husks total? 4. Collect all 4. I'll go over them again because you'll get them and you will be tested. Noga, the shining. That's where the Jewish souls come from. There's the, should I test you? Consuming fire, great cloud, and the Eish Mitlekachat Anan Gadol, and the Ruach Sa'ara, the storm wind.
I can't write that fast.
It's okay. I'll write it for you after the class. Okay? Be happy to. In Hebrew, with vowels. Okay? Okay? Just write down in your notes 3 klipot. Okay? So the Gentiles basically come from these 3. Okay? It doesn't mean they're evil and they're bad. It just means their level of light, the light that is within them is very concealed. Okay? Here it's a little bit more revealed. Noga. Okay? So basically this holy soul gets sent down into the body of, his dad was a truck driver and his mom was who knows what, made moonshine. You don't even know who the dad is, and the mom definitely made moonshine, had a gun, and would definitely get into bar fights with men. And I know one who did it. Okay? Yes.
Why would Hashem send a Jewish soul into a goy body?
That's a good question. Why would God send a Jewish soul into such a body? That's a good question. I want you to hold on to that question because hopefully we'll go through the text and we might be able to answer it. I have an answer now, but I don't want to give it to you because you have to earn it. Okay? Okay, now, I just wanted to let you just get privy to that. Okay? I'm sorry. That's actually a level oppression number 2. We had 4 levels of oppression, oppressed souls. 1 was the father wasn't thinking good thoughts at the time of conception. 2 is the soul goes into the body of a non-Jew. And they have to crawl and fight their way through so much.
Okay.
Even if they crawl and fight their way, right? And the Jewish court is supposed to like push away 3 times, going, it's right? Right? So, and by the way, to answer your question, Doctor, our religion, if you're a Gentile and you abide by the 7 Noahide laws, the 7 laws of Noah, you get a portion in the next world. That nobody else offers that. Okay? What a bargain. Okay? You don't have to be Jewish to get a portion in the next world. How do you like that? That's good enough. That's pretty good. What a bargain. Come on, man. You got 7, dude. John Voight went to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he goes, I want to be Jewish. John Voight. Right? And the lot of Jews, just stay who you are, man. Because he knows the guy's occupation. He's a Hollywood actor, right? Midnight Cowboy and all that kind of stuff. Right? You just stay who you are and be our friends and help us. And he does. With all his strength and might, he helps the Jewish people. Okay, his daughter ain't too hot, but she's a little deranged. But that's So, but in any case, okay.
Tomb Raider.
All right. So, anyways, we have here that there is such an entity that God will oppress a soul. Number 2, oppression. 1 was the parents aren't thinking right. Number 2 was the soul goes into a non-Jewish body. 3 was the balance scales are offset for oppression. In other words, a global look at the world. The world is falling apart. Everything's doom and gloom. You know these people, right? It's not only not so doom and gloom, okay? But let's say in the spiritual realm, if a person is born in that time period, it could be a day. It could be 5 minutes. It could be like, going like this all the time. And then number 4 is we're really not to speak about, but that's when a person, a baby dies an infant death. And that's a whole different, I don't want to get into that because it's not pleasant. Okay? But it's all for the best in the end. We have to have emunah and Baruch Hashem. And that's what Mishpatim teaches. It's emunah. Because God is guiding every single soul in its direct path that it needs to go in. So this person obviously has to appreciate, this soul has to go ahead and carve its way through to Judaism and do everything and go through such loops to become Jewish, okay? There's so many stories to tell, but I don't want to get too diverted, okay? So in any case, we're going to start with where I was said in the beginning, which was page 20. Yes, go.
I have one question. Is the order that you gave to us important, or just that there are 4 levels?
No, it's important.
Because
this is level 1. This is easier. This is harder. This is really hard,
Okay,
and this is like unbelievably
because
impossible.
when you presented to us, you reversed number 2 and 3.
You're right, because I made a mistake.
Oh, okay.
I made a
this is
mistake.
down at 3. Okay.
All right. Going on, chapter 1. Everybody there?
Yeah.
Section 11, the section of the Nefesh of the Ger. The concept of Nefesh of the convert will be mentioned several times throughout Shar Gilgulim, the gates of reincarnations. It will be worthwhile to examine it now in great detail. We have already learned from the Ari several important rules. Firstly, a Ruach, which is level 2 soul, cannot come into the world until the Nefesh is completely rectified. In other words, he'll explain. And the Neshama, which is level 3 soul, cannot come into the world until the Ruach is completely rectified. In other words, you have level layers of soul, 1, 2, and 3. And this is the case scenario that we're dealing with now. Let's say a person came into this world and they accomplished to fix their nefesh, and they accomplished to get their next level of soul called ruach, wind, and they got their 3rd level of soul, neshama, powerhouse, but they sinned. They sinned a certain sin which caused a blemish in all 3. Okay? So all 3 are blemished. The person leaves this world and has to come back down. And because he has to come back down, it's not going to be the same easy path that it was before. he has to fix his nefesh, and then once his nefesh is fixed, classically, his ruach then should come back down into the nefesh. But it can't. It can't because what? The nefesh has been blemished. And a blemished ruach, his ruach was blemished. His blemished ruach cannot come into a fixed nefesh. The nefesh is like a clean goblet, and you can't put muddy water in a clean goblet. It's just not appropriate. You don't give, it's a crude example, but it'll help for us now, this imagery. You don't give the keys to a Maserati to a caveman, okay? In other words, the nefesh, the ruach has not been fixed. It cannot go into this hot rod car. He won't, right? It's going to crash. He's going to crash it, okay? So the ruach is not fixed, and it cannot go into a fixed nefesh, okay? That's the scenario here. The same thing for the neshama, okay? Can't go into it. So classically, what would have to happen is this person would die, and then the nefesh would come back down. Okay, then the nefesh would come and have its turn. But the problem is that the ruach, I keep interchanging, level 2 soul, can't come down unless there's a nefesh. But the nefesh is fixed and clean, and it goes to its place where it needs to the big, huge, the upper Garden of Eden, where it hangs, waiting for the rest of it to get fixed. So, it has to come down in a nefesh. It has to come down. Okay. So let's go on. Secondly, when the ruach comes into the world, it must come ensconced with the nefesh, just like what I told you. However, if the ruach or the neshama were already in the world together with the nefesh, and they were blemished by sin, then the ruach must be rectified after completion of the nefesh, like I told you. But then a blemished ruach cannot enter the world ensconced within a rectified nefesh. It's a dirty ruach. It cannot come into a clean nefesh. The rectified nefesh cannot become a vehicle or external garment to a blemished ruach. Yet, the ruach and neshama cannot enter into the world without an intermediary of a nefesh. So how can the ruach and neshama ever enter the world to achieve rectification? So we got a conundrum. We got an issue here. Like that's the question on the floor. So the answer to this conundrum is the concept of the nefesh of the ger, which is the stranger or the convert. The ruach or neshama grabs hold of the nefesh of a ger, ensconces itself within that nefesh, and in this way it enters into the world with the nefesh of a ger serving as its intermediary or interface. Okay? So in other words, what I seems to be here is going to help me a little bit. Okay? So maybe when it talked about that second level of oppression of a Jewish soul gets put into the body of a convert, so maybe that's talking about this ruach or this neshama of somebody that needs to get fixed. So it has to enter into the ruach, enter into the nefesh of a convert. Okay? So that's kind of like, it's a drag. I'm sorry to say. It's a drag. Because my previous lifetime, my level 2 and level 3, were with a Jewish body, and, it was basically, some course of, direction, right? But now I have to be born into the body of somebody in the potato fields of Idaho, driving a pickup truck, drinking beer and watching reruns of I Love Lucy, right? It's not what the ruach wants to do. Okay, the ruach has something else going on. It wants to, this ain't accomplishing my mission. I didn't come down here to see reruns of I Love Lucy. Okay. In addition, there are several points that need to be known to understand this concept of the nefesh of the ger. Firstly, when this nefesh joins with a ruach or a neshama, it has already been in the world. And this is what I don't understand. And please, I want you to we have to really put this together. Okay, because I'm not clear on this. I have to be honest with you. Okay? It says it has already been in the world. The nefesh of the ger has already been in the world. So therefore, where is the oppression here? Where does this... So I remember my father-in-law saying somehow, he obviously this person who was born non-Jewish get some kind of inner awakening, where does that come from? Where does it come from? It had to be in the world, and the person converted. Where did that come from? See, I don't remember. Hopefully we'll see it as we go on. Well, obviously the person had an awakening to become Jewish. So the convert has already done what was necessary to merit to it. In other words, the person did convert. It got some kind of spirit within it from somewhere to convert and get a Nefesh. And then it lived its life with its Nefesh. And then it seems to be the Nefesh then, after it leaves, after 120, will go to its place, a certain place that we're going to talk about in a minute. We call it the lower Garden of Eden. Okay? So then this Nefesh of the Ger that he earned goes to a place in the Garden of Eden. We call it the lower Garden of Eden. There's a lower and there's an upper, as he's going to get to. Okay? So secondly, the Ari will explain in later chapters that there are three basic types of soul. Here we go. We discussed this before. There are new souls, somewhat new souls, semi-new. Those are descended from Cain and Hevel, and old souls. The Nefesh of the Ger is a fourth type. The following are the relevant words of the Ari at the end of chapter 7 in Shara Gilgulim, Sefer Gilgulim. There are other nefashot, okay, that's plural for Nefesh, that means the lower level of soul, of converts that fall out from the Klippa's Noga, from the Klippa of Noga, this is interesting to note, which is composed of good and evil, as mentioned in the Parshat Vayakhel. They are from the marital intercourse of the souls of the tzaddikim, the righteous ones, that take place every night in the earthly garden of paradise, as mentioned in Beshalach. So maybe we have another hint here, because we're asking the question: a person is non-Jewish, born non-Jewish, and all of a sudden gets some kind of spark within them. So maybe it could be that this prodigy of the marital intercourse of the souls of the righteous in the Garden of Eden that take place every night. See, you don't know what goes on. There's parties here that you have no idea that go on. And you know something, it only happens after midnight, baby. So, you know, if you want to really take part of that, and once you could, in a very dynamic way, it's called Tikkun Chatzot. Tikkun Chatzot, which is called, I'm going to translate it literally, midnight repair. Bad translation, Rabbi. Okay? It really means the fixing at midnight, the fixing of the neshama of midnight, which means people who get up and learn Torah. There are certain prayers you say. It's called the fourth prayer of the day, because really we pray usually 3, Shachar, Smicha, Mari, but this is the fourth prayer. That the righteous people get up after midnight, they say these certain prayers. Basically, it's a whole nother story, and they learn Torah. You learn Torah, you become one of those righteous souls. They know you're there. They connect with you, and the insights that come into your mind then are unbelievably quantified to a major way, because you are connected to the souls in the Garden of Eden. Okay? The problem is you just got to do it, right? Wake up at midnight. You got to wake up at midnight, according to Rabbi Nachman. It's not enough just to be up anyways, okay? It's not enough, I'm up anyways. I don't fall asleep till 3 anyways, right? No, Rabbi Nachman says it's the waking up that you have to. That's where you got to fight the element of death, right? Of the sleep and wake up, okay? In any case, they be happening in the Garden of Eden. They have been having, all of these unbelievable connections, and then for the force of these connections makes a soul of the convert. That soul of the convert then goes down, which is in the Klippa of Noga, goes down and is born into the body of a non-Jew, and then it has to chisel its way back to Judaism. The divisions of the souls of Israelites, however, are 3. They are new souls, intermediate ones, which are the souls of Cain and Abel, and the old ones, which fell from Adam Arishon when he sinned, and they fell into the Klippa. Okay? Thirdly, we will learn that it is possible for a blemished Ruach, whose Nefesh has been completed, to enter into the body of a person, a stranger, but not necessarily a convert, who himself possesses an unfinished nefesh, and this is called a double gilgul. Okay, we see that in chapter 4. Okay, so it is possible. It doesn't always have to be a convert. Doesn't always have to be. Okay, Those that want to examine this concept more extensively can read the translation and explanation of the relevant section of the Zohar in note 10. Turn the page, and that's what we have right here. We don't have to flip any pages. And here's where he brings down from the Zohar itself. And this is why it's so apropos, since it was last week's Parsha, that these are captions from the Zohar itself that have to do with reincarnation, and most specifically the Nefesh of the Ger. Now, just to give you a little prelude to this, what's going on in here, because he's going to bring a little dialogue here, is that these two rabbis were basically traveling on the way. They met, at this certain place called this certain tower. They met there at night after a day of traveling. These two rabbis who know each other met, and they were so happy. And one rabbi was saying, boy, my travel was such a bummer. I was this guy behind me, this donkey driver, was pestering me with these riddles about nothing the whole time, and he was just a drag. Sometimes if you're sitting next to somebody in an airplane and they, right, hi, how you doing? And you don't feel like talking. Oh my, you got work to do, right? And they go like, right? So this guy was like, oh man, it was such a drag. I was traveling with this guy, but really, this guy. This donkey driver was really a very extremely holy soul, and of course he's coming as a garment of a donkey driver, right, to teach this guy Torah, to enlighten these people. So anyway, so the other rabbi goes, show me this donkey driver. He's over there. Okay, call him over. And it ended up being this holy tzaddik, Rabbi Hamanuna Saba, called the old man, okay, the elder, and he sits down with him in a campfire and he expounds all about reincarnation and souls and oppressed souls, and he goes through this unbelievable, 200-page long, what do you call it? Exegesis. What do you call it? Exegesis on souls, and they just keep getting blown away by this guy. Okay. Okay. So let us consider the words of the Saba as they appear in the Zohar in Mishpatim, the post-biblical source of the concept of the Nefesh of the convert. The relevant section of the Zohar is actually an exposition on the verse, if he takes a different wife. Oh, shoot, I should have brought a chumash. Sorry. Oh, great.
What makes this wife different?
I mentioned to you earlier, thank you. Are you on the Parsha right now? Yes. Oh, you're so amazing. Thank you. Okay. You're a little ahead, okay? I'm sure you had a question there. Should I hold this page for you?
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay, so it talks about specifically the topic that I told you about, right? It reads like this. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, we know that's something different. It's talking about the soul coming down into this world. She shall not be freed as the male slaves are. She doesn't go out free. In other words, this certain person, right, who was put under to be sold as this type of slave. In other words, a lower body, that they were oppressed. Okay? When she gets free, she doesn't go free like anybody else. In other words, when the soul leaves the world, she's going to get a very huge reward, so to speak. Okay? If she proves to be displeasing to her master, who designated her for himself, he must let her be redeemed. He shall not have the right to sell her to outsiders, since he broke her faith with her. Which the idea really here is the master who took on this girl should marry her, really. Okay? But what happens if he doesn't marry her? He can't just sell her. Okay? He has to treat her right, and she has to go out completely free. And at 12, she has the right to refuse anyways. If she doesn't like the situation, she can go out anyways. She can completely refuse, okay? And if he designated her for his son, let's say, the son was going to marry her, he shall deal with her as the practice with free maidens, meaning just as she has the right of any other Jewish woman. If he marries another, this son, he must not withhold from this one her food, her clothing, and her conjugal rights. If he fails her in these three ways, she shall go out free without payment. That's the law, okay, here. So here he's quoting here.
What is conjugal rights?
Intimacy. That's one of the rights a husband has to do. If a husband withholds that from his wife, then, he's not fulfilling his contract. And then she goes out. And he has to pay the money of the contract because he's withholding from her that. Okay, those it's an obligatory thing. A person has to do all those. He has to supply her with this, and this is the source in the Bible that a man has to supply her with those needs. And if he doesn't supply her with it, then out you go. Okay, and if he doesn't want to give the get, well, that's a pretty harsh way. You know, there are ways that the rabbis will convince the person to give a get. They get Manny and Bruno. Okay, they get right. Luca Brazzi. You're gonna talk with him, make him an offer he can't refuse. Okay, so what?
They're not doing it.
Who's not doing what?
The rabbis are not.
It's really hard because they really don't want to do these kind of things because there's something called like secular law which doesn't allow these kind of things anymore. We don't have a Jewish court anymore. But it happens to be in Israel. They will rot in prison until they give a get. They cannot leave the country. They will not be able to leave the country, and they will be arrested and thrown in prison. And if they refuse, they refuse. That's true. It's true. And it's still happening, and it's very sad. Usually how it works these days when the man doesn't want to give the get, if you throw enough money at him, it's unfortunate and sad, but it's true. You throw enough money at him, then he gives it eventually. Okay? I don't want to dwell on it. Let's go on. Okay? The relevant section of the Zohar is in the verse, if he takes a different wife. So now you know what it's talking about, if he takes a different wife. The son who marries the girl, right, this neshama, if he takes a different wife, it concerns a Jewish girl who was sold by her father when she is still a minor. Okay, this gives you the background information into simple understanding. Okay, anybody got a battery? Just because I'm down. Okay, fine. A Jewish maidservant. The Torah requires the person who bought the maidservant to marry her, or to marry her to one of his sons. If he does not do this, by the time she becomes an adult, 12 years of age, then he gives her gifts and she goes out free. If he or one of his sons do marry her, then she is entitled to receive the love and respect due to every Jewish wife, which is defined by the three categories: her food, her raiment, and her qualitative time of intimacy. Okay? Even if he takes a different wife, right? Even if he takes a different wife, he can never deny this girl her privileges fully and without prejudice. However, the Zohar is considering the situation from an esoteric point of view that we're going to discuss now. The source in the Zohar. Here we go. All these souls of converts flew out from the Garden of Paradise in a hidden way. We already spoke about this. In a hidden way, they flew out. Okay? What does that mean? They have to fly out in a hidden way. In other words, these souls were not born to holy seed. Normally, souls come from the higher Garden of Paradise into this world by passing through the lower garden and then through the holy seed into this world. But these did not come down in a normal way. Suddenly, they appeared far away. And somehow they made their way back, and their path is called hidden. Okay? So somehow, some way, somebody born into a non-Jewish parents has some kind of awakening, and that is something hidden. That somehow this awakening occurred that pulls this person to the ways of Judaism. When they leave this world, and that is the souls of the converts that they gained from the Garden of Paradise, to what place did they return? Okay? So I'm going to think, when I look at this, when they leave this world, so I'm going to assume that they lived their life as a convert, and they died, and then their souls that they earned through the deeds that they did, where do they go? Okay, to what place did they return? Notice that these souls were already in the world. The converts, through their deeds, have earned them. The question here is, how did they get back to their place in the higher Garden of Paradise? And where are they in the meantime? In other words, somewhere in the higher Garden of Paradise there's some spark that didn't take the normal path to come down. Normally, when Jewish parents procreate, So there's a soul that comes down from the higher Garden of Paradise through the lower Garden of Paradise in through the holy seed. But here obviously is a different program happening. Something from the higher Garden of Paradise in some weird about way, some kind of different path, end up being born to non-Jewish parents, make their way back, earn a Nefesh by converting, and then pass this world, and then the Nefesh goes where? Okay? So we are taught that the first person to grab and take hold of the property of a convert merits it. This is a true law in Jewish law. You might not like it, but this is what it is. There are two rules in Jewish law that are relevant to this statement. Any Jew has an inheritor. There is some relative, however distant, who has the right to inherit his property. When he dies, his property is never up for grabs, quote unquote, since there is someone who has the legal right to inherit it somewhere all the way down to up to Avram Avinu. There's always going to be some distant cousin relative somewhere in the world to inherit this person's property if he should not have kids or relatives. That's for a Jewish person. In contrast, a convert does not have a Jewish family tree that goes back for generations. He might die and leave no inheritors. In such a case, the rule is that his property is up for grabs, and it is true. Okay? If the guy doesn't really have any relatives, now this is like precludes secular law. If there's secular law and this guy wrote a will that goes to his whoever, right? Whoever his relatives are, because then it goes there. But if we're talking about somebody who lives in Israel, doesn't have any parents, grandparents, no relatives, by the way, even though when they convert, they're also considered to be a completely new person, and there really is no connection even to his relatives anymore. So therefore, the real law is whoever grabs it first, it's his. Okay? Whoever grabs the property of a convert who has died and left no inheritors merits to the property. It is the same here with all of these holy and high neshamot who are designated by the Blessed Holy One to go down below, as we have explained. Okay, according to the Ari, these are the ruchot and neshamot that were blemished in a previous lifetime. So now picture, as you will, there's a place in the lower Garden of Eden where once upon a time, if we have blemished our ruach, our level 2 or level 3 soul, hangs out in the lower Garden of Eden, right? And it really wants to do something, right? It really wants to go down. It really wants a rectification. We all really are plotting for a rectification, okay? They go out at specific times. This is talking about those souls. They go out at specific times to play in the lower Garden of Paradise. And when they're playing there, don't ask me what they're playing, okay?
Kickball.
I was thinking more of badminton. Okay. It's more lighter. It's fluffy and it just flies. All right. It's not like hardball, you know. Maybe they play hardball. Okay. So they go out at specific times to play in the lower Garden of Paradise, and they meet the souls of converts. I don't know what the souls of converts are doing. Maybe they're drinking a latte, and all of a sudden the guy's playing badminton and goes, "Hey, what you doing here?" Right? One that takes hold of one of these souls, unites with it, merits to it, ensconces itself with it, and goes out. In other words, you see that convert over there? I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it. I'm going to ride down. I'm going to do something. You dare me? I double dog dare you. And the unsuspecting soul of this convert is just sitting drinking a martini. I don't know what, golf or putting or something, you know. All of a sudden, hey, you know, gotcha. No, actually, it's quite pleasant. Okay, this is like, oh, awesome. Let's just do this. Okay. Since their nefesh is completed, that's the nefesh of the person. Now go back to the Jewish person, right? Don't forget. Go backtrack. The nefesh, he got completed. Awesome, great. I want my next level to come. I want my ruach to come, but the ruach is blemished, right? What does my fixed nefesh do, right?
Well, when they play without a body, how does it look like? You can still perceive it?
I can actually say with my all of my being, I don't know. We don't know what it means for a soul to play. It could be like they're singing praises to the Almighty. could be that they're singing praises to the Almighty, learning Torah, looking at every single letter of the Torah and dancing with every letter of the Torah. Okay? With unbelievable hislavus and on fire, dancing with all the letters of the Torah. With other tzaddikim, a huge dance party that we cannot even fathom. Okay? That it's an unbelievable joy. Okay? We'll get into that later. Okay? All I know is it's really, you don't know what celebrating is. That's one thing. Okay? So, since their nefesh is completed, it is now time for them to be reincarnated. However, they cannot ensconce within their rectified nefesh because they are blemished. Okay? Meaning the ruach is blemished. What can they do? They meet the souls of converts, grab hold of them, ensconce within them, and within these garments they are born into the world. They exist within these enveloping garments, and they remain in the garden, in these garments, because all those that are existing within the lower garden of paradise cannot exist there if they are not clothed. Now this is kind of, I don't know what happened here. The previous paragraph was talking about going into the world. Now it seems to backtrack. And I'm not clear on this, okay? It says that one thing is for sure, though. The Ruach and the Neshama, levels 2 and 3, coming from the higher garden of paradise, they cannot exist in the lower garden if they don't have something to wear, okay? I don't have something to wear. I'm not going to the party if I don't have something to wear. Okay?
That would be the combination of the soul of the convert that they procured. Because they wouldn't be, otherwise they would be naked. So now they have some collateral that provides a garment. It's like a husk.
It is. It's absolutely a husk. So it sounds like, from what it's saying here, is the Ruach and the Neshama, the higher levels of soul that are blemished, they cannot even go into the lower garden without something to wear. So they need the soul of the convert that's hanging out in the lower garden to dress it.
One more thing. In a way, this explanation answers your first question back there, where you didn't know how that would happen. It would either be a reincarnated soul or it'd be someone who's garmented. And you asked back before, how did they get there? Finally it says it's already been in the world.
Yeah.
You either have to be reincarnated or it comes by what you call the hidden route.
Yes.
And it would have a garment. So
I think that
answers your question.
I think this is defining the hidden route.
So there you are.
So the Ruach and the Neshama go from the higher garden of paradise to the lower garden of paradise. Whatever it is, just call it dimension A and dimension B. Okay? And they go into, and they can't get into dimension B without wearing something, so they find the Nefesh of the Ger. You look like a nice person, nice size you up. Okay, got it. Okay? And then from there, what happens? They're in the lower garden of paradise, ensconced or dressed in this Nefesh of the Ger. Okay, but here he goes to here, okay? Where am I? Which paragraph?
Right here.
Perhaps, good. Perhaps this is talking about the Nefesh, the original Nefesh of the Ruach Neshama. Maybe. Because he's even, it sounds like he's even doubtful. This Nefesh will have been cheated. Because it now exists, it must now exist without a Ruach or Neshama. Which has gone off with another man. Right? Which has gone off to join the Nefesh of a Ger. Okay? Maybe it's talking about that nefesh. Or perhaps it is talking about the ruach itself that is ensconced with the nefesh of the ger, which is really what our understanding is now. The latter, meaning the nefesh of the ger, acts as an imposition blocking out some of the ecstasy that was supposed to be absorbed by the ruach neshama. Okay? This is an interesting idea because the body or the nefesh of the ger is going to block out because it's not really his own nefesh, okay? And it's an opaque style nefesh because of where it came from and what it's gone through in its lifetime, okay? It's not really a proper fit in terms of the garment, okay? Behold, it is written, if he takes another wife to himself, that's what the verse says, he shall not deny her food, her raiment, and her qualitative time of intimacy. What does this mean? In the garden, he exists ensconced within this garment that he grabbed and merited. But when he goes up from there, he removes it because he does not need to exist there within a garment. Okay? Here, let's look at the note. Thus, when the Ruach Neshama goes up to a higher garden of paradise, he, that Ruach or Neshama, divests the garment, the interposition is removed, and he is free to rejoin the original Nefesh, his original Nefesh, which is in the higher garden of paradise. Moreover, the Nefesh of the Ger has gained an important benefit. It has been brought back into the higher garden of paradise, albeit as a garment, but now that the Ruach has divested itself of its garment in the higher paradise, the Nefesh of the Ger is there on its own and has an independent entity. You following this? Now, let's get this clearly, okay? It seems what's happening here is, when it says, if he takes another wife to himself, this is talking about the Ruach, and the wife obviously is either garment A or garment B, okay? In other words, the soul has a garment and has two garments. It has one garment, the Nefesh of the Ger, in the lower garden of paradise. It seems here that when this Ruach wants to go to the higher garden of paradise, it also needs a coat to go there. You cannot move from one chamber to another, one dimension to another, without a coat, okay? Without a garment. So, of course, he needs that garment, okay? This, oh shoot, I don't know what I pressed the wrong thing. Okay. Anyway, so he needs a garment. So of course this Ruach, this spirit, is going to fly up to the higher garden of paradise with the garment, Nefesh of the Ger, with this soul of the convert, and the soul of the convert gets an elevation. It's getting into the higher garden of paradise.
It's like a symbiosis between them.
So when he goes to the higher garden of paradise with the garment, with this Nefesh of the convert, it sees his other wife. He cannot deny his other wife the true rights that he is obligated to fulfill. In other words, his original Nefesh. He cannot say, dude, I'm with this now. Fend for yourself. Okay? So he's going to strip the garment, the Nefesh of the Ger, and then go to his original Nefesh, right? So what happens to the Nefesh of the Ger? It got to the higher garden of paradise, and because it got to the higher garden of paradise, it has its own status in the higher garden of paradise.
And the Ger is in the higher garden now.
The Ger is in the higher garden and has its own status, okay? So that's why it could be the esoteric meaning of, if he takes another wife to himself, then he shall not deny her food, raiment, and her qualitative time of intimacy, could actually be referring now to the Nefesh of the Ger. Am I past time now?
Yes.
Whoa! Okay, this is a deep study here. I hope you're following me with
Which
this.
connects
Okay?
to Mishpatim because of the three qualities that are written by the law.
Exactly, it's right here. So here, we'll end off with this, okay? Try to put this together here, what we got so far, okay? What happens is there's some hidden way that there's some soul flies down into the body of a non-Jew who merits his way to convert to Judaism, and therefore he gets for himself a Nefesh. He lives his life as a Jew, dies as a Jew. That Nefesh goes to the lower Garden of Eden. But as a garment, it doesn't have a Ruach and a Neshama of its own. There's Ruachot and Neshamot. There's other spirits that are dwelling in the lower Garden of Paradise who see it, grab hold of it. And they use it actually to go down into this world to get themselves fixed. And they do get themselves fixed. And then when they leave this world, they die. They go out from this world. That Nefesh of the Ger goes to the higher Garden of Paradise along with that Ruach. When they go to the higher Garden of Paradise, that Nefesh of the Ger that was used by the Ruach, right, cannot be just cast aside, right? It's not just another coat. It is a coat, but it has a status in the higher Garden of Paradise. That even though the Ruach reattaches with his original partner, his original Nefesh, level 1 soul, that Nefesh of the Ger has now a higher status. Okay? We're going to leave it off from here, and I think we got more pieces, but like I say, this is some pretty in-depth study. Okay? Now I'll leave. Any questions?
So it seems like